Well, if you're like me, you probably thought we'd be on the other side of this pandemic. However, COVID-19 had different plans for us, and throughout these difficult times, the city has had to continue making important decisions on our behalf. This show gives you an opportunity to connect with your elected officials and, of course, for them to connect with you. Welcome to Ward Updates 2022. This is a series of one-on-one interviews with city councillors and, of course, the Mayor of Ottawa. We're going to discuss a number of important issues, that affect you, that affect your family, of course, your neighbors, and other members of your community. My guest today is Cathy Curry, City Councillor for Kanata North. Welcome, Cathy. Really appreciate you spending time with us, and just wanted to start off on a personal note, just asking how things have been with you and your family through all of this.
Challenging. I have all four of my kids at the beginning of the pandemic that were in school of some sort at some level. And, there was such an upheaval, from one day to the next. They weren't sure if they were going to be in class, online, if they were even going to have school. So that was challenging. They all made it through, with the various changes to our Wi-Fi and stuff. But, I would say my family did not struggle as much as other families. And my oldest daughter is a nurse, an RN, and listening to her experience of what other people were dealing with and what she was as a nurse made me realize how lucky we were.
Yeah. When you have a perspective like that, especially from somebody close to you, I can't even imagine, how it can ground you, right? When you hear about other things that are going on. Well, you are the newest member around the council table, so Cathy, I have to ask, what has this been like these first few months?
It has been a wild ride. I was really thankful that I had enough experience on the school board as chair and on the various boards that I served on in the city, because when I had to have the orientation, it was like a fire hose of information. You're just drinking constantly all this new information.
Right.
It was challenging, but at least I had something to draw from, thinking, oh, that's similar to that board, at CHIO, we do that. And, so I had a lot to compare it to, and the school board was similar in terms of legislation. But the second I was appointed, almost, the Ontario Supreme Court came out with their ruling for the Kanata Lakes Golf Course, and it wasn't good news.
Yes.
So to have to, hit the ground running. And, Derick, no staff, Jenna, now MP Jenna Suds, she loved her staff. They loved her. They went with her. So there's no one left in the Kanata North office. So I was learning all these new, committees and, legislative bodies and who I was to report to and who did what in the city as I was hiring staff. And then the hearing makes its decision for the Ontario Supreme Court. So it meant for a lot more stress. And unfortunately, Jenna's email address, where she had her newsletter going out to all the community, that list couldn't be shared with us due to privacy legislation. So I had no real way of communicating. So that was really unfortunate. So we tried very hard. Luckily, I had a good connection with a number of the community associations, which drive Kanata North. They're just amazing people. So they helped get word out. But it was unbelievably challenging at first. It's still going on. I can talk a lot more about that later. But
I was going to ask you about that because, normally, in normal times as a new city councillor, regardless of, how you became the city council, you would be doing some of that door-to-door stuff, and you would be going to events and, in your ward and meeting people and greeting people. And so how have you just mentioned all the difficulties with communicating with constituents. How have you been able to reach out to the community to find out what some of the major issues are that are affecting them?
Yes, absolutely. So just prior to being appointed, I actually met with the head of the Kanata Green Space Protection Coalition, Barbara Ramsey. I met with Jenna. I met with Marianne Wilkinson. So I had some background information to get in there and up and running quickly. But people reach out to me right away. They got that Cathy.curry@ottawa.ca. They put that in their email and said, Cathy, this is who I am. We need to meet. And I can tell you the first few weeks, all I did was sit on a video call and meet new people. And as I said, though, some of them were not that new. And I was able to say, oh, remember we worked together on the school board? Okay, let's just pick up from where we left off in our relationship and start talking about what's happening now. So it was a lot of that, drawing from previous connections. And then, letting, and Marianne was helpful, and other people in the community associations were helpful to say, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, if you want to contact Cathy, this is what you need to do. So that was a sort of a first month thing. Now we have a much better way of communicating with the community. But in addition, Derick, I meet with each of the community associations every month, and I meet with all the presidents of those community associations once a month as well, in addition to the Kanata North BIA and the Kanata Central BIA and the Kanata North Transportation Committee. So those are the people that are really able to spread the word and to give me feedback as to what I might need to know to make good decisions and to know what to do, and especially in this golf course situation.
Yeah, I was going to go back to the golf course because I believe it was January 17th, if I'm not wrong. It was sort of that was the beginning, right, of the Ontario Land Tribunal hearing regarding that development. Do you have any update on the file since that began?
So right now, the community is all watching. Everyone's watching. Legal teams, well, our legal team is there, but other legal teams for the coalition, and watching really upsetting testimony where ClubLink is making the argument and speaking as if the houses are already approved and they'll be built tomorrow. Right. But our planners have not yet had the opportunity to present. So that hearing goes on every day, except Fridays, every week for about another 4 or 5 weeks. And starting this week, coming up, the planners will present. And their argument will be that there is no stormwater management plan that works. There's not a stormwater management plan for those lands, Derick, and there isn't a stormwater management plan for the KNL development that is further north, and nor might there ever be. And if there isn't a stormwater management plan, there is no construction that will go forward. So that's the argument by the city. And, Derick, we see that in smaller locations. Somebody wants to put up a building somewhere. There's no stormwater management plan. It's not happening. So that's the good news. We have a really strong argument. It's just really upsetting to watch the trial go on every day.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what people are. I mean, even, and that's a spot that not just used by your ward, right? That, people from all around the region come to that golf club and use those facilities. You mentioned development. There's a tremendous amount of development that's planned in the coming years in Kanata North. I wonder, does that development that's coming, does that fit into Ottawa's new master plan when we talk about this new 15-minute neighborhood? From what you've been able to see and look at the developments coming into your ward, what do you see? Do they fit into that master plan?
Derick, that's an excellent question. We talked about that at the Kanata North Transportation Committee meeting, and we actually talk about it at every meeting, really. The challenge is for existing neighborhoods to have all of a sudden 15-minute commute to everything you could ever need and want. So that's not unique to Kanata North. That's across the whole city.
Right.
However, there are some things we can do in existing neighborhoods to make that work better. And as we continue to build Kanata, and Kanata North soon in the next election, also March Rural will be part of Kanata North's ward.
Right. That's right.
A lot of that is looking at new development. What can we do that will connect up other developments that will then allow for transportation to be more seamless? How can we connect what they call where a pathway ends and there's no connector, so the missing link is what they call it. And how can we connect up those missing links? But as you probably know, when the LRT comes out to Kanata, we're also talking about that last mile to the business park. What could we do there? And the autonomous vehicle shuttle is what is being talked about. It's being researched, it's being looked at, it's being tested, and it has been tested in Kanata and in our X.O site, where we have an entire little city basically near the experimental farm or on the experimental farm lands, where they're trying out all these shuttles. So there's so much going on in Kanata that's all connected, and it is the 15-minute neighborhoods will be certainly served better when the 15-minute neighborhood concept will be easier to do in newer neighborhoods. But I think there's lots we can do for existing neighborhoods as well. And we talk about that at every committee. How can we do that? What community consultation could be involved that can make it work better? So we are on all those committees, and we are involved in all the consultations to try to get it to work as best we can.
Well, and Kanata North, also home to Canada's largest tech park, right? My question around that is, a lot of businesses get built around these kinds of industries, right? So you have small businesses that rely on, all of those, major tech businesses, whether it's startup or large tech businesses that rely on them. I wonder, are some of those businesses, have they reached out to you? Have you heard how they've been dealing with the pandemic? Are they concerned that perhaps people working from home are not going to be returning to work in these office spaces? I just wanted you to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really appreciate this question, because this question allows me to do a little bit of what we're trying to do in the Kanata North office, and that is connect the dots for people so they can see how interconnected, to your question, Derick, everything is. So if people do start to come back to work, and the BIAs are telling me they are seeing that, they want to come back to a place that is, the Kanata North Tech Park and surrounding areas, but one that offers a lot more than that offers right now. So Kanata North, okay, absolutely unbelievable companies coming in and wanting to come in. Their challenge is to attract talent and keep talent to work there. And not see working from home as a better option, because right, we know when people are together and connected and having those conversations, that's where great ideas come from. So when you look at a company like Nokia, they have a vision for the tech park. You look at a company like TELUS, who'd like to come in and change it so that their employees have places to shop, places to live. So our tech park, their motto was live, work, play. It's now live, work, play, learn. So the live part of it, they would say, really wasn't manifested yet. And so that's what they really want to focus on. And the learn part is new. So the learn part involves bringing in Algonquin College, Ottawa U, Carleton, all the universities and educational institutions that we have in Ottawa that would help bring together ideas. So there could be even more incubators. LSpark over there is looking at every possible idea that could be, brought to life. And if we have those companies start up and we want to keep those companies, then we have to have great places to live. Great places to live, to help you connect where I'm heading in the connecting the dots realm, is where there is green space. Companies like Nokia, companies like Ericsson, they want their employees to be living in areas where there's a lot of natural landscape. So we talk about infill and we talk about building more and more housing. There has to be the right type of housing. There has to be more housing, but there has to be neighborhoods and environments that people want to live in. Otherwise, companies won't come to the tech park. And we need those companies, because then those companies bring more people. Those people buy more houses. Those people are more customers for all the businesses, not just in the tech park, but in Kanata Central BIA knows that too. So some people understand the connection. Because, you say to people, why should I care about, and I hear this, Derick, why should I care about the golfers in Kanata Lakes? And we say, right. It's not just that. And it's the whole city. And, my colleagues on council, they do get it. They see how this is all connected. The business that we attract to Kanata drives what we get in property taxes, what we get in development taxes, charges and fees. So, it's all interconnected. And we really want people to understand that. It's not about pitting one group against the other or preferring one group over the other. It's about showing how we're all connected.
Well, yeah, you've used that word a couple of times, connected and connecting the dots. I recall last year you invited constituents to speak about the cycling network in your area, and having these the links that are necessary to make it something viable, that people are actually going to use their bicycle, not just for a leisurely ride, but some people want to commute to and from work. What came out of some of those conversations that you had with constituents?
Oh, one of the number one comments I've had recently is that we sort of missed an education component. Education, and on many fronts, like in some of the comments I was hearing, was people aren't clear on what the rules are. What are the pathways for? Are they multi-use? Who can use them? What are the rules? Where are they? Are they going to be connected to another location? Why can't people get through the KNL lands right now? Because that was such a beautiful cycling pathway. Yeah. People wanted to know, Why is it that there are, and we had this discussion at council there last week about the light system for revert reds and sensors for where bicyclists are, and why isn't there more education on that? So we heard a lot about that. We have some really strong community members on the Kanata North Transportation Committee, and they are out there watching everything. You know, they contact me, Cathy, there's a sign missing. Oh, Cathy, there's a sign down. When is this sign on the pathways going to be made permanent? It seems to be, you know, held up with sandbags. So, you know, we have a very strong committee in Kanata that looks at bike pathways, and those beautiful pathways through the South March Highlands, through the Beaver Pond. You know, they are, you know, people grew up with those. You know, Kanata residents, they stay, they come back, they live there forever, they raise their kids.
Oh yeah, my brother lives there, and you know, he raves about that pathway that you just described. He raves about it. He loves cycling up along that area.
Yeah, oh for sure. You know, it is such a beautiful place, Kanata North, and you know, that's why I think, you know, to sit and watch that Club Link hearing and they talk about, oh, we're just going to have all these houses and get rid of all that green space. You know, it's crushing for people.
Yeah, and it's as you said, it's not just about golf. It's about keeping a green space that attracts, you know, a lot of different wildlife, right? I think people, you know, sometimes they forget that. Like, not all golf courses are simply there for golf. They actually, you know, provide a lot of space for nature and for wildlife that people don't necessarily realize. I know it's not the same as, you know, having something completely underdeveloped, but you know, sometimes that's just the reality of life and living in a city, and people wanting to have activities in their city. I want to go towards, you know, some of the major issues perhaps that are facing your ward in Kanata North. What's the one standout issue right now that you keep hearing about from your constituents that, you know, moving into the next term of council, you would like to ensure that gets either started or even completed?
Yeah. So one of the things I hear about most is that, to your earlier question, you know, there's so many new neighborhoods going in. And to your question earlier too about 15-minute neighborhoods, one of the things and this is tricky because it's provincial and it's municipal, but there is a municipal role that we approve development applications when there's just really a spot on the subdivision plan for a school. There's just really a spot for a community center, but there's no proof that will ever materialize. And especially the schools, I hear about that more than anything. And maybe that's because I was school board chair. I hear a lot about the schools, but people will say, how can you continue to make subdivisions and allow applications to go forward when there is no school? Where are these students going to go? So we know the schools in Kanata, and they have always been, are overcrowded. And we continue as a school board put portables. But I guess the comment from the community is, if we have a new official plan and we want 15-minute neighborhoods, and we are trying to, there's another program that we're trying to make development applications go through more quickly, and certainly the provincial government's looking at that as well. What can we do to make sure we don't just simply have more housing, but then don't have any of the services there for many years? And Derick, I'm not talking 2 years. It could be 20 years before a school is built in a neighborhood. Like, the trees are fully grown and there's still no school. So I hear about that a lot. And, you know, as I said, as a municipal councillor, it's not as if I can say, okay, well, we're going to stop all of that until a school is built, because the province needs to give funding for the school to be built. But there are things that can be done, you know, and developers, you know, they want to get things done and the infrastructure done and then on to their next project, and then they're gone. And then it's us, city councillors, certainly, and formerly school board trustees, who have to deal with the rest of it. So I'd say that's what I'm hearing a lot of, because there's so much building in Kanata North.
Yeah, you mentioned developers, and I think some of the frustration that people have seen over the years is that the regulations aren't in place to force developers to do certain things that make a community, that make even a small development, that make it a wonderful place to live. And that is, you know, putting in sidewalks and having green space and putting in trees and making, you know, sure that all of those things are in place. And because a developer, let's be honest, they want the biggest bang for their buck. And if they don't have to put in a sidewalk, and if they're not forced to put in a tree and forced to do so, how much of that is the onus on city council, do you think, to ensure that developers know specifically they have to do these things if they want to build in our city?
So that comes with development charges. And so that is something I gather, thanks to the colleagues on council right now, that has changed just recently. So when a new development goes in, it used to be that the city had to pay for all the signs. Like, maybe you don't think that's a big deal, but street sign after street sign and speeding sign, all of those signs cost a lot of money. And putting them in and maintaining them, and sidewalks. To your point, we have two major sidewalk programs in Kanata right now, one on Halton Terrace and one coming on Varley. And those should have been installed, exactly what you're saying, should have been installed so many years ago, 20 years ago. And now we're paying to do that. So some of these development charges that we can put to the builder can take care of those things. And so I gather that is changing. It's just that that's now and not then. And so we now have to deal with a lot of the past sidewalk signs and everything else. But it is changing. So that's where the municipal councillor has a role to say. When I have to review, or when we have to review a policy or a bylaw or any legal document that we sign with developers, are there changes to be made? Because some of those costs, I gather, were never anticipated, and now they've become unbelievably expensive for cities.
Yeah. I want to talk transportation specific to your ward. What improvements need to happen as far as public transportation goes? We can set aside the LRT. We've talked about that so often. I want to get more specific. What are you hearing from your constituents when it comes to public transportation? Obviously, phase 2 coming into Kanata is going to be a change maker there. But what are some of the frustrations right now?
So, how I was talking about all the great things that could go in the Kanata North Tech Park, some unbelievably beautiful visions for housing, everything else. With that comes the reality that along the Kanata Tech Park is March Road. And March Road is wildly busy at all times. I mean, it's different in the pandemic now, but we do anticipate, March Road becoming the same situation it was. So they recommend bus rapid transit, BRT, for the middle of March Road. Well, I think that might be $250 million estimate right now. Where is that money coming from? In addition to getting the LRT, where we're hoping for provincial money and federal money. So when you talk to Kanata North residents, they're saying, really? First, let's see if we get the LRT. Then you think we're going to get this bus rapid transit. So, I have had some really good conversations, especially with the people in the tech park, about Carling. And what can we do with people getting off at Moody, coming up Carling, and then being able to enter from a different direction. So some of the transportation is not just simply technology, putting in different buses and autonomous vehicles, but some of it is alternate routes. So that I think is, and that's a conversation about to take place with the community. Our staff are so welcoming community input on that, because they know when you change the tech park and the amount of businesses that will be in there, it's going to affect March Road.
I would say I'm going to just turn to, revenues. Obviously, the pandemic has created a huge shortfall when it comes to revenues coming into the city. Just talking about public transportation alone, huge losses in revenue. But you're also looking at, city programs and event spaces and so forth and other fees. So we have this huge shortfall. I think most people would probably say that they think, a 3% tax hike is quite reasonable under these circumstances. The concerns that I've heard and in talking to members of the community and my circle of friends and family is, I hope we're not putting off the inevitable, and that a few years down the road, those tax hikes are going to look more like a 5 to 10% because we're being unrealistic now. What are your thoughts on that, Kath?
Yeah, no, that is, and we heard that through budget for sure. I'm not as concerned because we are so lucky in Ottawa to be such a growing city. And so development, just everything we've just been talking about, those charges really do bring in a lot of income. I mean, my understanding during budget was that there was 3%, but we know we get 1.7 with just development charges because, we're a growing city. Other cities are not as lucky because, as you point out, we lost revenue certainly from transit. People weren't riding. We lost income from just city programs, right? Even all the rec centers being closed and the rinks. And the reality, that revenue is lost. Yeah. So we only have so many forms of revenue. the pandemic affected a lot of it. We asked city staff, do you really think ridership will be up and we'll be back in a good situation? And they said, we think it might be up to 80%. No one has a crystal ball, Derick. Like, you know, you can't expect people to predict things like that. But that was their thinking. Our safeguard is that we know we have those development charges. That's very different from a lot of other municipalities.
Okay. Yeah, because I think a lot of people looked at that 80% and thought it was quite unrealistic. Not only, you know, because of the pandemic, I would say because, you know, people get into new habits and it's hard to break a habit. It's hard to break the habit of my car is nice and warm, you know, when I jump into it in the middle of winter and, you know, I can go to and from work in this warm car and, you know, I don't have to, you know, walk to and from the bus stop or the LRT station and that sort of thing. But I want to move on to, first of all, you know, we've seen some divide, you know, in this city council. We're going to see some new faces coming in. Of course, there's going to be a new mayor. So my question is, number one, what sort of leadership qualities do you think is necessary, not just from the mayor, who is, you know, sort of the leader, of course, but, you know, the rest of city council? And have you made a decision on whether you're going to run again come October 24th, 2022?
So to the first part of your question, I think, you know, no matter what position we are talking about, councillors, mayors, you know, school board chairs, you know, any teachers, whoever's a leader, you have to be a person who listens and really listens. And you have to be a person who tries to understand that there's never just one side to a story. There's never just two sides to a story. You know, as a teacher, I constantly talked with kids about how you have to look at many, many different possible solutions and many different perspectives. You have to be open to those. You can't just have a fixed position and say, you know, I'm totally right. When is anyone totally right? Never. So you have to have that quality to understand that and ask yourself, what's making me so strong on this position? Am I really right, or am I missing information here? So that quality alone, I think, is key in any of those positions. And I wish that council would get along better, but, you know, when I look at some of the big decisions, they have been unanimous on a lot of really important things. So I think that if you had to do the statistics, it's misleading to say that it's really a divided council right now. I think there is a lot more.
That's why I said it. That's why I said at times, because I do agree with you. I think people forget that for the majority of the time, council has been on the same page. But, you know, there have been some major issues. 60 seconds left. Any plans to run again? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so your second question. So I've had a lot of people encouraging me. It's super, you know, it's good for my ego. It's complimentary. I have a lot of things I'd like to do in my life. So it's a difficult decision. You know, when I was appointed, there was sort of 11 months, but I am thinking about it. I'm getting a lot of encouragement. I'll have to wait until May. There's a few things I have to sort out to figure out how I can really do it. It's a big commitment, 4 years. So, but I haven't ruled it out.
Well, I appreciate your honesty in answering the question. Councillor Curry, thanks so much for spending time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is wonderful.
It's our pleasure. And thank you at home for watching. This has been another in our series of Ward Updates 2022.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
What in the world?
Seek.
Have no idea what we're walking into.
Are you a Nazi? Explore.
I feel so insignificant. It's just jaw-dropping.
Take risks.
At 45 below, it's a survival issue.
It is real.
Here we come, Bison. Go on! Get!
Understand.
What is going on?
I'm trying to figure it out. Knowledge is the key.
Simple as that.
Go further with